So, contrary to what has been misrepresented on the media, this rally is not about hate. There's been a popular chant over there, love over hate, and we agree with that. This rally is about keeping males out of the female washrooms. That is a perverted idea, and it needs to end. Unfortunately, it's happening inside those doors right now. Female students have complained about this. The school refuses to take action. I have decided to take action. Thank you all for joining me.
All right, guys. So we got to talk about a fascinating story out of Canada. And the reason why I want to talk about this story is because this story is very similar to a story that I did yesterday about a walkout that was organized at an Atlanta school by woke students who got offended by a teacher using the N-word while correcting other students who were using the N-word. Basically, he told them, look, the N-word is bad and you shouldn't use the N-word for this reason. And he happened to say the N-word. I'm assuming he said it with an A. And they walked out because the school only suspended him for 1 day. They want the school to fire him because he's a white man and he said the N-word. Doesn't matter the context. Doesn't matter that he was actually trying to correct students on the usage of the word, tell them to stop using the word. He got suspended. They wanted to be fired, and the students that were actually using the word that's supposed to be so bad, they were not punished. Okay, in fact, they were celebrated. They're currently being celebrated by the woke revolutionaries. Now, this story right here is interesting because it shows you the double standards, or really lack of standards, that we have for one side of the political aisle versus another side of the political aisle. How, depending on what you're protesting about, it's totally okay, it's totally fine in certain situations where the agenda aligns with the left, and when the agenda does not align with the left, when it aligns with the right or conservative causes, all of a sudden, it's a problem. It's the BLM versus January 6th thing. You know what I'm saying? So, this story right here involves an Ontario student who got suspended amid objections to transgender students in the girls' washroom. So this student by the name of Josh Alexander, he's 16 years old. He organized a walkout against male students, biologically male students, being able to use the bathrooms with biologically female or girl students. After two girls had complained to him how they were uncomfortable, he went to the principal to basically, stand up for them and say, hey, they feel uncomfortable with this. And he organized a walkout because they refused to do anything about it. And now he's been suspended. And he claims that he may be facing expulsion as well. So I want to talk about this because, again, this right here does show you the double standard that we have in society when it comes to what protests are acceptable and what protests are not acceptable. And it shows up all over the place. So let's get into it. A student at St. Joseph's High School in Renfrew, Ontario, has been suspended for a month for his interactions with transgender students at his school. Josh Alexander, 16, organized a protest in November against the use of female washrooms by transgender students. Before that, he had engaged in a heated classroom conversation in which he insisted there are only two genders. Quote, multiple students, including trans students, were kind of shouting me down, he told the Epic Times. He said the school told him he, quote, may have violated the Safe Schools policy for this and similar incidents. The Safe Schools Act outlines how Ontario schools should regulate student behavior, including in which cases to suspend or expel. Alexander thinks the school is considering expelling him. The school's principal and vice principal did not reply to inquiry by the Epic Times by time of the publication. Mark Simpson, a director of education for the Renfrew County Catholic District School Board, told the Epic Times he cannot discuss specific students with the press. Searson said the board tries to take the pastoral approach with transgender students. That means these students are engaged in many conversations, he said, including with the principals and chaplains. Yeah, so this is a Catholic school. Okay, and that's all the irony here, right? Catholicism is supposed to be a form of Christianity, right? It is clear in the Bible where God stands on this issue. But this school does not seem to care, okay? As they seem to not be going along with their religious beliefs because they're afraid of hurting people's feelings, okay? They're afraid of hurting people's feelings. Quote, there's so much polarization in the world and in our community right now, in particular over this issue, Searson said. We want to do everything we can to bring everyone back together and ensure we can have some dialogue. Alexander said, quote, I do have a little bit of sympathy for the transgender students. Quote, I don't think it's fair that they are growing up with parents who encourage this behavior. He maintains the schools have encouraged gender dysphoria. At St. Joseph, he said he has heard 2 teachers speak in favor of male breastfeeding. Again, this type of stuff used to be unheard of, in churches and in some of these, religious schools, these Christian schools, but it's becoming very, very, very commonplace, even amongst those who, again, claim to be following the Bible, right? Or to be grounded in Christian principles. It's just amazing how this works. Some of the class discussions we had were completely inappropriate. He said, I would actually be rebuked for calling them out on it. Alexander faced both community support and backlash when he led a student walkout and protest on November 25th on the issue of the girls' school washrooms. A female grade 11 student at St. Joseph spoke to the Epoch Times about her discomfort having a transgender student in the girls' washroom. The Epoch Times has chosen not to publish her name. She said she saw a transgender student enter the girls' washroom this year for the first time after 2 previous years at the school. Quote, I was just in my bathroom, and then a transgender male walked in after me. She said, quote, that kind of really caught me off guard because I didn't even know at that point that he self-identified as female. Yeah, again, this is a very interesting point because it's not like these students have, got their battle scars yet, right? They've got their Barbie pouches. That hasn't happened, okay? Most likely because they're students. But I don't know, man. Canada's kind of crazy. Maybe they are doing that over there. I'm not sure. But most likely, these students are going to be very male-looking students, and they're going to be walking into these bathrooms with girls. And what do you think the girls' reaction is going to be? It's going to be just like that. It's going to be uncomfortable. They're going to feel like their privacy is being violated. But again, because we live in a society where women's feelings and women's rights doesn't matter anymore when it comes to the rights of biological men who want to versus the rights of when they're in opposition to the rights, right, or the privileges that the woke revolutionaries want to give to biological men who want to be women or biological boys who want to be girls. Women's rights, biological women's rights goes out the window. It doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter. She wasn't going to say anything about it, but she noticed her other friend commenting, quote, that is pretty weird. She said, it is for my own privacy and safety that I felt like I had to say something at that point. She told Alexander about it and also went to her principal. The principal was very polite about it. He said he appreciated me for coming forward and it's important for him to hear both sides of the story and all that, but I didn't really get the sense that he was going to actually do anything about it. The school board Searson said he was unaware of any complaints having come in about the washrooms. He said he did hear about one case of a transgender student allegedly being bullied for using the washrooms, but that is the only washroom related complaint. Yeah, well, of course they're not going to say anything about it. They're not going to acknowledge it because if they do, then they're going to be accused of being transphobes and bigots. So they just, stay quiet because they're afraid of the mob. That's like 99% of the reason why a lot of these people don't say anything, even though they know it's wrong. Okay, they know it doesn't make sense. They know that it is not good for these girls. They're not going to say anything about it because they don't want to be called out by the mob, okay? Quote, the Ontario Human Rights Code has made it very explicit that individuals do have the right to utilize the restricted washroom of their lived gender identity, Searson said. Usually transgender students use the universal washrooms, he said. So they got gender-neutral bathrooms. So, my thing is that what the rule should actually be is either use the bathroom of your birth sex or you can use the gender neutral bathroom, but you can't go into the bathroom of the opposite sex. I feel like that's fair, right? That is fair. St. Joseph, along with other schools in the same board, has a few universal one-person washrooms in addition to the gender washrooms, but sometimes Searson said they really want to utilize the segregated washroom of their lived gender, and that's their right to do that. No, it's not their right, right? It's not their right. You are giving them privileges, and you're calling it a right. It's not a right. Alexander had previous experience with protests and walkouts as a member of Save Canada when he led student action in support of the Freedom Convoy. Save Canada describes itself as, quote, a volunteer organization with a mission to create the most prosperous and free Canada. He was suspended for these actions a few times at his previous school. He said he was in the public school board before and transferred this year to the Catholic board. He describes himself as a born-again Christian. Several students participated in the walkout, though the protest swelled with adult attendance. The counter-protest was also set up across the street. Both students who attended the protest and those who attended the counter-protest were considered to have skipped school that day. They were not allowed to use the school's transportation for the day, according to board policy for unexcused absences, Searson said. Well, at least they're enforcing the rules equally, right? At least they're doing that. The Pride Facebook group rallied people for the counter-protest. A parent organizing the counter-protest through the group wrote, quote, friends, our trans and non-binary friends need your help. The parent said the protest was going to be against trans youth. Quote, I am heartbroken and exhausted, the parent continued. After being in a meeting with the school staff yesterday, I decided to pull my child because they have no way to ensure her safety. The Epic Times reached out to Pride for further comment on the situation at St. Paul's, but did not receive a reply by time of publication. Alexander says the characterization of Save Canada, of himself, and of the protest by those opposed to it was wrong. It wasn't necessarily an anti-trans rally. It was more so just we wanted gender-restricted washrooms, he said. Yeah, so, I mean, look, here's the thing. The whole anti-trans thing, the whole, transphobe label, they never use that label when, you actually are afraid of transgender people. That's what it's supposed to mean. Okay, that's exactly what it's supposed to mean. They throw that label on you to make it so you can't disagree with them, right? You can't disagree with them. You can't say that, hey, you know what? I don't think biological men and women should be using the same bathrooms together. That's why they use that label. Because if you disagree with their policy, they can call you a transphobe in order to stop debate, right? Therefore, you can't talk, you can't speak anymore. That's all it is, right? It's just a silencing tool. But again, what I find to be interesting is that, let's just say this was a walkout over some teacher using the N-word or something like that, or some racism walkout or BLM walkout. Do you think the student would have been suspended? Of course not, right? Of course not. He was only suspended because he protested for a cause that the left doesn't agree with, right? And they suspend him for bigotry. When I can make the argument that people that are walking out for BLM, who knows, maybe they are doing an anti-cop protest, an anti-white person protest, right? I can say it comes from a place of hate and bigotry. But again, they never get suspended for it. They never get punished for it. They get praised for it. This is brave, right? Brave and stunning when they do that. But when this guy walks out to defend or to stand up for girls who don't want to use the restroom with boys, he's anti-trans, he's a bigot, and he gets suspended. Again, the double standards are everywhere. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.